Welcome to the Marketing Stack podcast. My name is Burhan, and today I'm honored to be speaking to Dennis Wakabayashi. I hope I got his last name right. And he's one of those very interesting human beings who's dealing with customer experience, and he's dealing with trying to make things better for customers both online and offline, I guess, Dennis.
That's right.
And so, it's all about not only efficiency from how can we get money from you quickly, but also just from like making it easier for you to complete something that you started. Like, if you're at a checkout and you don't pick up the thing that you were supposed to at the supermarket, it's kind of frustrating when you get home and you realize that you didn't get it. Or if you've got 1,000 emails from Amazon saying, hey, you missed out on something on your checkout, it's like either annoying that you didn't get it, or it's cool that they're reminding you. So it's like one of those things that Dennis works on, and goes deep into all of those things. He was named as, where's my notes? One of the top 50 experts with regards to social media. Is that right, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. And also, he's a VP of Customer Experience Implementation of R.R. Donnelley, where they deal with customer experience tactics and a whole bunch of other things related to your purchasing behavior. So, Dennis, welcome to the episode. And thank you for reaching out on Twitter and wanting to be on the episode as a guest. You surprised me and you gave me a good experience just by being on the episode, or the way that you hustled your way onto the episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly. Respect the hustle. One of the things that attracted me to your podcast and wanting to be here today, Baran, is just your hustle as well. I admire content creators, influencers, people like yourself who put in all of this work to bring audiences and voices together. And so it's an honor to be talking with you this morning.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, like I had been putting off doing a podcast for like ages. I had the intention, I had the software, but this whole thing of like reaching out to people and starting conversations with strangers, like we've just met maybe 10 or 15 minutes ago. And like I can feel the rapport already. And it's like, oh, this is not so difficult. Why haven't I done this years before? Right.
That's just because you're a fantastic host. It's all you. So I also feel the rapport, and the vibe is just immaculate. So thank you.
I love the compliments early in the episode. It's always cool. So tell me what it's like working your way into customer experience from your history. Like, where did you start, and sort of like a quick summary of like, how did you get into customer experience and why?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. I wasn't always at this level of complexity or challenge that I have in my daily role. I started out at the very, very, very bottom. I ran a stat camera at a print shop before there was computers. That's how old I am. I'm dating myself. And I learned the craft from the shooting of cameras, stat cameras, to creating mechanicals for print ads. And then I started at an ad agency where computers were introduced, and I learned digital production. Followed that, at the time, we were still in the apprentice system. So I had a art director that I was a production artist for. He taught me how to do television, print, radio commercials. I then taught him how to do digital advertising. And when that table sort of turned, I moved on then to digital strategy. And so when we talk today, we're really talking about 35 years of just doing anything anyone asked me in an ad agency. And now I'm at R.R. Donnelley. We're within the top 10 largest marketing firms on the globe. We service, and it's kind of parallel to my life, at R.R. Donnelley, we do everything from your most basic fundamental applications of marketing and business solutions all the way to globally complex delivery. So really how I got here is just one foot in front of the other and working my way through the curiosity, exploration, and execution of marketing anything.
So interesting. So the time when you were doing the manual stuff, around what year was that? Like, if you don't mind me asking.
Well, I mean, if you really want to date me, sure. I started in the business running stack cameras in 1989.
Okay,
No,
interesting.
yeah, 1989.
So in terms of marketing speak, like you said, that was before internet, before the sort
Oh
of
yeah.
computers became a thing. So that was kind of like late night TV shows,
Yeah.
direct mail, posters,
Phone
billboards,
books. Yeah.
right? Phone book and classified ads, like all of that
Yes.
was what
Yes.
was like
Oh
hot.
my God. I've made so many classified ads. I can fit more sales messaging into a 1 by 1 square. People think doing banner ads is hard. Try telling an entire brand story in something that's 1 inch high and 2 inches wide in one color.
Hmm. I remember doing my first classified ad, and I was intimidating. It was like, oh my goodness, how do I fit this into like this very small,
Yeah.
the limitation on my life? It was like massive, just writing that out. And then like there's all these thoughts of like, oh, how do I actually say what I want to say and then actually get people to call me? Like, yeah, it was challenging. But
Exactly. Designing. I was speaking from a designing perspective, but you're exactly right. You have to get a message across and
right,
engage and convert in this much space. So yes.
right. And I think today, if we bring that forward, it's harder now. Maybe we have a few more characters. Maybe we can always like delete the post and repost it, or change the creative if you want to. It's harder because it's so easy to change, in my opinion. I feel like perfection is at an all-time high, or perfectionism is at an all-time high because of the ability to edit. What do you think about that?
I think that is a perspective that I have not really contemplated. But I agree with totally. Your perspective is so refreshing. Perfection being at an all-time high, you're exactly right. Every business is optimizing. We have the ability to look at dashboards or visualize so much data to tell us so much more about our customers. And the fact that not only can we change things, in a lot of instances, we're forced to change things as fast as possible to get closer and closer to perfection. So I would tend to agree with you that at the scale of the things that go on in marketing now and the speed, perfection is, like you said, at an all-time high. And it's the thing that makes it most difficult for me and you or other marketers, your audience, to keep up.
So you start with marketing and sort of getting into all of the creative stuff. But why customer experience? Because there's definitely, I feel like there was a decision somewhere in your life where you're like, I want to help people buy these things better. Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share this with your audience. It really was a issue of chickens. And I'll tell you, my
Okay.
grandmother, my grandmother, who's going to be 101 or 102 this year, I think.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah, yes. So she's living right. I worked at a rotisserie chicken restaurant chain that was across the United States. I was in charge of the digital marketing. I every year would send a birthday message to my grandmother, of course, with an offer for rotisserie chicken. And she loves rotisserie chicken. It's like her
Mhm.
thing. That's her jam. So that one year, the email went to her. My wife gets the email, goes down to pick up the rotisserie chicken for my grandmother's birthday, and there's no chickens at the restaurant. And
Oh,
what I happen to know is at this particular restaurant, our chickens were never frozen. They were all natural. They were rotisserie cooked over an hour and a half. So you cannot get a chicken, rotisserie chicken, while you wait from this place. And so my wife couldn't get the chicken. My grandmother couldn't get the chicken. And I happen to know just from working at this chain, and I had been on tours throughout different parts of the country with our CEO, and his number one pet peeve was not having chickens at a restaurant that sells chickens. So when we think about it, Burhan, here I am. My CEO has a problem, and my grandmother has the same problem, and I'm in the middle of it. And it was at that moment I thought, there's got to be more to this, because the digital marketing I had done had created demand. And it made me wonder how many other customers didn't get a chicken that day. And that was the moment I realized customer experience is so much more than creating demand. There's the supply. And how do you balance supply and demand in a marketplace in different geographies? And that sort of opened my eyes to the fact that marketing teams have to work with supply chains to really create the best customer experience. And once I changed that perspective away from acquiring customers to addressing the needs of customers, and fortunately over my career, I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of great leaders who recognized my curiosity and gave me the support to investigate. And that process, over the next 2 years of that organization, I realized that you had to be 2 to 3 months ahead of supply chain and procurement to get natural fresh chickens to customers, and they had to get to restaurants. And so your marketing, you had to be at least 3 months ahead, being able to predict how many customers would be in a store at any given time, and then get that message to supply chain and procurement so that the customer and the company had the best experience together. So that's a long story, but suffice it to say, I learned it all from rotisserie chickens.
Yeah. Well, if I had to summarize, or if I had to take away something from that story, it's yes, marketing can create a lot of demand. That's what it's there for. That's what it's designed to do.
Yes.
But then the delivery, not only just the supply in physical chickens being at the store available for customers, just that experience of making sure that people got what they wanted, right? Ultimately, like they walked in, they had an intention. People get disappointed when they don't get what they want, and you lose customers that way. And they could be, you lose customers for life sometimes. And I'm all about that. Like in my business as well, I think long term, these conversations that I have for the podcast and also other conversations that I just jump on randomly are all about building relationships. And, my goal is to have friends all around the world that I can just pop in whenever I feel like, when I'm in town, type of thing.
Next time you're in Texas, you pop in. You can be in our guest room. We can share a YouTube studio. We'll do a little side-by-side YouTube show.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you. I mean, I didn't intend for that to happen, but thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I've also kind of experienced a similar thing. I was advertising on Facebook for a client in Hong Kong, actually to the Asian market. So we were, delivering goods to Thailand and Japan and a lot of countries around this area. And the ads performed so well that he ran out of stock. And the factory was 2 months behind schedule. And we basically had to shut all the campaigns off because the business just couldn't survive on. And I was like, dude, like that's the hottest product. He's like, no, but we made a version B. And I'm like, no, version A is the one people want. And he was like, I'm sorry, like we just, and so his online sales plummeted because he didn't have that product available. And by the time we got it back on, there were like 20 or 30 other copycats that I already, because this is like Chinese market, right? So within a couple of days, that product was already out by some other factory, and we had lost that market share. So sorry, that like a little bit of a long story there as well.
I love that story. I was listening intently. Burhan, I identify completely with what you're saying. I've had an opportunity to work in the Asian markets, of course, like you have. And I appreciate, so I was sort of reliving some moments at Temple Street Night Market in Hong Kong and enjoying listening to you talk about that. And did you know that one of the 10 most amazing bathrooms in the world is at Felix's at the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong? It's on the top floor. Ooh. And it's a bathroom that's basically made of glass that looks out over the city. But it's still private, but it's also scenic. It's if next time you're there, Peninsula Hotel. Felix is on the top floor. But I liked your conversation because it's any channel, right? I was doing it in email. You were doing it in advertising on search engines using algorithms. People can simply use so many tools to connect with customers, and they just rush out to talk to customers. When they do that without considering the logistics and supply chain or the connection or the happiness of that customer at scale, and you run into these problems, it hurts the reputation of the brand. And ultimately, in the long run, it's, to your point, it causes shifts in the marketplace. Customers subscribe to brands now. They unsubscribe and they go right over to the other provider. And so I totally agree with that. It's supply and demand have to meet.
Yeah. But I think it's like, just in terms of like, we're producing content, we're trying to produce content, we're putting out videos on YouTube, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. And there's a lot of cringy content out there, and we all know about that. For me, I'm less conscious of the cringe because I'm all about just getting it done now. It's like, even if the edit is not 100% perfect, I'm trying to let go of that perfectionism so that, the audience, or also that at least the one or two people that are watching my videos or that are listening to the podcast, and it's more than that, but yeah, at least it's about who's listening or who's watching rather than how many. And that perspective for me, I heard that many years ago. I think I can't even remember who it was, who I heard it from. And that kind of changed the game a little bit for me because, even if it's one customer who doesn't get the chicken, it's one too many.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And then there are marketing tactics where, it's like limited offer, we're only available 10 seats. And there's lots of trickery going on in the world as well when it comes to that. And so there's a fine line between creating demand, giving that experience of like fear of missing out, because I think fear of missing out is a valuable tool in terms of marketing when it's legitimate or when it's real, right? If the chickens are finished, the chickens are finished. Like, that's not cooked up demand. Forgive the pun there.
I like what you did there.
But it's like, what do you think about that? Because you're online, you're seeing all the bullshit that's going on, you're seeing all the hokey pokey stuff. Like, what's your opinion on the way that things are going?
You asked a couple of questions there. I wanted to address the cringe content. I agree with you 100%. I was going to share with you earlier when we were warming up for this podcast that I leave my cringiest videos on my YouTube channel, those ones that have, I think, 4 views. And I love them because you're right. It's about just being authentic. And I think that when you, reflecting upon something earlier we talked about, having the progression of videos or content go from cringy to a little better, that continued pursuit of perfection, I think it makes us better as human beings ourselves as we acknowledge our growth, acknowledge the growth in others, and continue to be part of the voice of giving permission for people to succeed over time. And I was looking at my phone and I reposted this little meme, but you made me think of it, which is, it says, "Do you want to know what my secret is? You see,
Please.
I don't mind what happens." And I think that there is a certain poetry to constantly pursuing perfection, but not expecting it. So I just want to acknowledge you there. As far as all the different kinds of things that I see in the internet, one, from a content creator perspective, I agree with you that any content is good content, in my opinion, that is going along a journey. Repetitive content, I feel, is the part of the internet that is unfortunate and it's hard to get away from. So I always try to be part of the culture or the communities or the companies that are innovative. So there you have it. You have repetitive to innovative. I tend to go towards innovation, innovators, you as an example, your multiple content streams, you're innovating, you're creating a new connection between people all the time. And there's companies, I can say, I've looked at several startups this year, and there are companies doing things that are completely game changers. Like there's this company called Joined App. They put chat transactions transactions in the chat windows across all the platforms in this seamless thin layer way. So if you think about it from an experience perspective, when you are shopping, you're basically going to an online e-commerce portal. You're doing all the work yourself. You're searching through. Sure, shopping is a fun experience, but a shopping cart, if the doorbell rings or the dog barks, you abandon the shopping cart.
Right.
When you're chatting with someone and you're having a shopping experience together with someone else, and the doorbell rings, you might tend to say, hey, can somebody get that for me? I'm in the middle of something, because you don't abandon people during this process of transaction or purchasing. So I find that to be one of the most innovative things out there. So to sum that up, I look for innovations, innovating people, platforms, process, and I gravitate towards those things, and I try to filter the rest out. But that doesn't mean I don't respect those other things as well.
Sure, sure. And what do you say about all the trickery going on?
When you say trickery, I think I would define trickery as repetitive automation. And
Okay.
so that's one. And I think the other one is just pure deception. I mean, if I could, I mean, there's a funny kind of part of me that wants some of that trickery to be real. I would love to just wire someone for, or give them 4 Amazon gift card numbers and get back $1 million, or
Right.
or whatever those things are. And so I mean, at a certain point, you got to admire the creativity as well. I don't throw shade on anyone, but you're right. There's trickery, and I myself, as a practitioner, I try to migrate towards innovative, fun, engaging, frictionless experiences. And I say that as a recommendation to your audience, but I think it's a lifestyle too, right? There's another quote: how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yep.
And so I think we try to be better as people, try to help people along their journey, whether they're customers or employees or just humans. And the world
Yeah.
needs that right now.
Yeah, there was something that I was thinking of while you said that, and it's, it comes down to what can we do for people? And in terms of marketing, I think like we get all these tools. Like if you had to think about Facebook and how Facebook started, and then, they built the ad platform, and then advertisers went nuts and they were selling all of the, like there were no rules, or it was like Wild Wild West type of thing. And all the changes, all the rules, all the algorithm updates that happened, or that happen all the time on these platforms, I believe make things better for the consumer, right? So one, it's always the consumer in mind, because Facebook's going to lose the audience if they don't do that. And two, as marketers, we're then forced to innovate. We're forced to make changes. We're forced to think of different ways. And so, like, if I had to think of a current thing that's going on with this iOS 14 update, Facebook is fighting tooth and nail against it. But as marketers, we're like, well, or for me anyway, I'm like, okay, that's fine, but how can we adapt? How can we change? What do we need to do in the future? Whether Facebook gets it right, wins the fight or not, people's privacy is important, and they need to have the choice. And so it's like, well, fine, maybe we're taking a step back, because now we don't know that these people want bananas that are grown in the south of Brazil versus bananas that are made in Thailand. Like, fine, like, okay, how can we still figure this out? And so I think that just pushes the human race forward as a whole, because it's like, what can we do better?
Burhan, you're right. People love innovation and they hate change. And there's a beautiful irony there. The changes in the operating systems, as we started talking about at the very on, the ability to change, rapidly and quickly, it creates a culture in any organization. I see small companies all the way to large enterprises who either embrace change or do not. And
Mhm.
that becomes reflected in their customer base or their employees, or and it extends outwards into communities who are inflexible or into software. And I think your point is, whether it's Facebook or Google or the internet in general, these changes happen at scale.
Mhm.
And I think you either become a person who's ready for constant change, or you don't. And that's where I think a lot of that polarizing discussion that we see around certain topics happens,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, there are people who are willing to change and people who are not willing to change. And unfortunately, it's been amplified by social media. If you choose to embrace change, I think you're voting for innovation, and you get that journey to perfection all the way around.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And it's funny, I'm at the moment reading Anti-Fragile, and I forget the author's name, but it's one of those fascinating books that goes into history. Actually, let me find the name right now. But
Yes, while you do that, I'm going to quick write myself a note, because something tells me if you're reading it, it's going to be worth reading myself.
yeah, it's by Nassim Taleb, and he tells the story of how, back before refrigeration was a thing, people used to, they found out that ice and food helps to preserve food longer. So, wastage, and you get to keep food for longer because there's certain foods that can't be grown and made in certain parts, certain times of the year, etc. And so they were using ice. So they were cutting up ice off the lakes and the rivers and, well, wherever water was accumulating and freezing to store food. And then obviously, the long story short, refrigeration was invented, blah, blah, blah. And then we had these little ice machines or freezers in our homes. And if you look at the history, the companies who were cutting up the ice did not embrace the refrigeration technology. And all of those companies in that chain to get to where we are now, it wasn't the same people that started that journey that had innovated into the new business. So I think customers are like we have to adapt. If Apple changes the phone or they don't support an older version, we just have to upgrade or buy a new phone, or like technology in that way does force us to use newer things. But when it comes to businesses, like if you think of Nokia, if you think of Ericsson, like they were in the cell phone markets in a very big way, didn't embrace BlackBerry, typical example. They didn't embrace touchscreen technology, and so they're nowhere in the cell phone market space anymore. They still exist, but they're not in that space. And so as I look at all of these things and I try to reinvent myself, like now at the moment, it's like, okay, well, how do I not become obsolete? How do I embrace change? How do I give my clients a good customer experience so I still stay relevant?
Yeah, that's a really great setup and application of the awareness that you have in the industry. Change is certainly important in cultures of corporations. So I'll speak to your audience from the perspective of what I see. Innovation and change happen in an organization when there is strong communication. In your example of going from cutting up ice on the lake to freezer technology, there were some ice companies that made the leap, and then others who recognized the change and capitalized upon it. In both instances, you had a culture or a system of people who communicated well, shared ideas, were open to change, and they did that in your example of the ice. Maybe there were some groups that had one lone person who cut the ice and took it to town, and that person did not communicate with others like himself or herself to create a bigger network of people. And this open communication and permission to change and permission to be curious, that's what I find is at the heart of companies that are very innovative, and they communicate that to their people. and the employees are part of the co-creation throughout the entire organization. You see that in companies like Apple or others that continue to drive forward and bring us new things. So I think communication, I always think of all success comes down to three things: empathy. So that means I listen to you, you listen to me, and we feel each other's intent. Empathy, collaboration leads to growth. So if we can connect with each other and we collaborate, we work together, then we both grow as people. And that applies at the individual, at any business, as well as it applies to everyone in the business at any corporation, as well as any nonprofit or anything you're doing in life. If you empathize with others and you collaborate, positive change happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. That seems like it's like a version. It's what's the word? Formula for success in the new world that we live in.
That's my formula. Empathy, collaboration leads to growth.
Cool. I love that. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for being with me on the episode. This was fun. I certainly learned a lot from you, and I hope that the audience did as well. Where can people find you? Do you want them to find you, and where?
People can find me at denniswakabayashi.com. You can find me on Twitter at justintimecx. You can just Google search Wakabayashi. I hope they find a link there to my spelling of my name. But Wakabayashi plus marketing, Wakabayashi plus customer experience, they can find me. But more than anyone finding me, I just wanted to meet you, Burhan. I admire your grind. I've been watching the timer as we've been talking, and we've certainly gone longer than most podcasts. I don't know how we'll use this content, but I do want to say I really admire what you're doing. You have a great YouTuber presence. The whole time we've been here, I've been thinking, I like his vibe. So I wonder if I can be more like that, because you look just like a comfortable YouTuber. Like I'm like,
Oh, thank you.
So I'm picking up a little tips and how to look better on camera from you. So it's just been, as you mentioned, a great opportunity to meet you. I appreciate the collaboration, and thank you so much, sir.
Oh, thank you. And so all of Dennis's links will be below the episode if you're looking at this on the website. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Definitely check out Dennis's YouTube channel as well, which I know he's got. It's active, but kind of, I would encourage you to keep going on the YouTube thing.
I have 4 videos coming up there. They're on this other desktop, I promise.
Nice. Please get them out. And then, yeah, if you're listening to this on Apple, you know what to do. Hit the follow, leave a review, do all of the good things for us to keep the content going. Thank you so much. Dennis, that was cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.